the map of Africa we see on maps today the actual size? Or is there some level of distortion to what we have known or been taught in schools? So now the greatest question would be, what is the actual size of the African continent? Think back to your high school classes, particularly that of geography, where you probably had a map stuck to the wall. Just like me, you looked at that map thinking and wishing what kind of adventures you would take to those countries on the map. But I remember during those classes, there was no point at any point where the accuracy of the world map was discussed or even raised as a point of contention. Geography lessons began with the assumption that the world map was an objective truth that was accepted by all, which of course even today that is on the ground. So today we are looking at how the size of Africa on the map has been downsized with your host. This is Christine. It is widely believed that Africa is the second most populous continent in the world. That is, of course, after Asia. When you look at its land area, it has a total land area of approximately 30,365,000 square kilometers. It is bordered by seas and of course oceans. So when you look at it to the west side, it is located by the Atlantic Ocean. When you look at the north of Africa, you find the Mediterranean Sea. In the east, you find the Indian and the Red Sea. The total continent of Africa has a population of about 1.3 billion people spread across the 54 countries, making it a continent that is incredibly diverse. The earliest obtainable map of the African continent was by Monista, who was a professor at Edinburgh University in 1552. So how did he come up with this map? Well, he did so by soliciting some sort of descriptions and maps that were obtained from German scholars and foreigners, and by doing so he became an influential cartographer of the mid-16th century. Monista was the first map maker to print separate maps of the four then continents, which is of course Europe, Africa, Asia, and America. Now, when we look at the map that was coined by Monista, some of the features that you'll find is that Africa has one giant eye seated over countries such as Nigeria and Cameroon, which simply means that there is a tribe that we are calling the Monopoly tribe. Then you find that there is a dense forest located in today's Sahara Desert. Now that would be quite interesting, because if it was a dense forest there, what would have happened and how did it turn into what we know as the Sahara Desert? Then you observe that on the map there is an elephant filling the whole part of southern Africa. Probably simply means or meaning that there were a lot of elephants in the southern region of Africa. Few coastal towns are noted, but in the map we are still not able to see the country of Madagascar. One of the intriguing aspects of this map is the loop of the Senegal River, which is shown entering the ocean. Then the second map was by Ortelius Abraham. So he came up with this map through travels to many of the great book fairs, established contacts with literati in many countries. He collected maps and became one of the authority on historical cartography. The atlas was a very big success and respected, and it was printed in many editions in 7 languages for more than 40 years. Now, when we look at the map by Ortelius, here Africa assumes a more recognizable shape with a more pointed southern cape. The Zanzibar coastland features on the west side, but you and I know that the Zanzibar is located on the east coast. But I think later this error has been corrected. Then Madagascar on the map by Ortelius appears, and no animal or plant life is indicated, but the oceans do contain aquatic animals such as the swordfish and whales. We have another map which was done by Blue Willem Janzo in 1630. This map is the most decorative and popular of early times. So this map was printed many times between 1631 and 1667, appearing in Latin, French, German, Dutch, and Spanish. Well, I'd say probably that's what led to colonization, because if they understood, or if this map was printed in these languages, there was the interest. Now, when we look at the features on the map by Blue, you find that we have major cities, and of course others were trading ports. You find that we have what we are calling the Tangier and Keta, that's in Morocco, Tunis in Tunisia, Alexandria and Cairo in Egypt. We have the seaport of Mozambique in Mozambique, Elmina in Ghana, and Grand Canary in the Canary Islands. The interior is decorated with exotic animals such as lions, elephants, ostriches. Of course, Africa is known for that. Yeah, it's not a surprise. Then we have the Great Nile, which is shown flowing from the Ptolemaic lakes of Zaire and Zaflan. Then in the oceans, we are observing some aquatic animals such as flying fish. Okay. This is where the flying fish I like comes from the flying fish. Okay. And strange other sea creatures from the surrounding oceans and seas. But when we look at the map by Blue, one of the interesting feature on this map is the identification of some of the great territories of Africa. For example, we've got Abyssinia appears on this map. Abyssinia, of course, is known as Ethiopia in the days of today, and we have the great Monomotapa Kingdom in the whole part of the southern Africa. Well, between 1500 and 1600, there were quite a lot of maps that were printed, but the latest one was by Andrivo Gonjon Eugene. I like that name. Sounding of French. I should just say some French. Andrivo Gonjon Eugene. So he came up with another map that was between the 1832 and 1897. So his map was, of course, as a result of the expeditions that were taken by David Livingstone in the southern of Africa, Sir Richard Francis Burton and John Hennings Speke, that is in the Lake region, and Henry Merton Stanley in Central Africa, as is the advance of European influence in their territories. Now, when we look at this map by Anne Rifle, is that you find a great shaded line across the north central part of the continent, which is simply demarcating Arab countries from what we're calling Pays des Nègres, which is a French phrase meaning the region of the Negroes. So probably the northern part was considered to be a region of the Arabs, then the southern part, the region of the Negroes, where the most blacks originate from. Yeah. So those are some of the maps that were coined by some of these cartographers of those days. Then we have the recent cartographies, maps. Let me just use the word maps. So in the recent times, we have different maps that have been used, but one of the greatest one that has brought in a lot of confusion is what we are calling the Mercator projection. So the Mercator projection was produced in 1569 by a Flemish cartographer whose name is or was Gerardus Mercator. So in his aim of coming up with this map was to design a world map that sailors could use to navigate the high seas easily. So the map would have been primarily to assist with intercontinental trade routes, most notably the notorious trans-African trade. The Mercator map made its way into the world recognition. That was centuries after, and even today it is one of the most versions you see in shops, in classrooms, and of course printed on travel-themed gifts. The problem is, although the Mercator map was useful for sailors who wanted to plot straight lines or straight line charts as they navigated their way on the ocean, the map tells a story that feeds into a traditional idea of Western superiority and domination. It does this by inflating the size of the lands that are further from the equator. So lands such as Greenland, we've got Alaska, Russia, all those are all located in rather off the equator or a bit far from the equator. Then countries such as Algeria, talk of Egypt, or Africa. That continent is all located in the equator line, therefore reducing the size of how it should be. Therefore, land masses such as Greenland, Antarctica, as I've already mentioned, on the Mercator map appears a little bit larger or far larger than they actually are in size. For examples of regions, I've already talked of Greenland, which when we look at the map or the Mercator map, Greenland appears the same size as Africa, but in actual sense, it's actually smaller than Africa 14 times, meaning it can enter into Africa 14 times. And then when we look at Greenland, the size of Greenland can actually be compared to that of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Then one of the other examples on the distortion of this map is that Africa seems to be the same size as that of South America, when Africa in reality is actually 1.5 times bigger than South America. Madagascar and Great Britain look about the same size, but Madagascar is actually more than twice the size of Great Britain. So now, how is the Mercator map able to downsize or enlarge some of these territories on the map? So I want to demonstrate to you using what we are calling the true size app. So here we go.
So I'm demonstrating the how the Mercator map is able to enlarge and downsize regions on the map. So the app is called the True Size app. You can actually find it on Google and try to play around if you would like. So like I mentioned earlier, the Mercator projection is able to inflate inflate or deflate regions on the map. So those that are lying on the equator line, the Mercator projection tends to downsize them or reduce them in size. And those that are lying far from the equator line, or those that are lying near the north or the south pole, tend to be enlarged. So on the True Size of app, we have a window here. This window, you can use it to search whatever country you want, and it will be able to highlight and give you its size of land it has. So now here I have several countries that we have been tried, so I'm just going to clear them out so that we start all over again. Let me just enlarge it a little. So clear them. So in my the examples that I gave earlier, I talked of Greenland, and I'm going to begin with that. So let's type in Greenland in the window. So Greenland has been highlighted in this color. It appears to be yellowish or orangish. You can choose between the two. So that is Greenland. Look at how big it is. And when we look at it, it's almost as big as Africa. That is how it's depicted on the Mercator map. Now, if we put the pointer on Greenland, its total land area is about 2,166,086 square kilometers. Now, of course, we can't compare it to Africa, so we are going to get one region in Africa. And the example I gave was the Democratic Republic of Congo. So there's Congo here highlighted, though we are not being told the size area of Congo. So I'm going to choose another region. Let's talk of Algeria because it's one of the biggest countries, if it's not the biggest country in Africa. So Algeria. So there's our Algeria highlighted in green. So the total land area of Algeria is about 2,381,441. So it means Algeria is bigger than Greenland by about plus or minus 300,000 square kilometers. Now let's drag Greenland close to the equator. So that is how small Greenland has become when we bring it down to the equator. Okay, and if we were to drag Algeria and take it to the North Pole, close or away from the equator, Algeria also becomes big. So this is how the Mercator projection tends to distort sizes on the map. Another example is of Great Britain. Let's use the United Kingdom. So there it is. So when we put the case on the United Kingdom, it has a total land area of 242,495 square kilometers. And when we compare it to Madagascar, okay, there is Madagascar. When we put the case on Madagascar, it has a total land area of 587,041 square kilometers. So that simply means Madagascar is bigger in size than the United Kingdom by about plus or minus 200,000 thereabout. But when you look at their sizes, the United Kingdom and Madagascar, the United Kingdom seems slightly a little bit larger. And let's move it close to the equator. So that is how small the United Kingdom would have been appearing on the map if it was brought, or if it was lying close to the equator. But one of the most interesting ones, I'm not disputing that Russia is large, but it could be very great to see how big it is, because look at how big it is on this map. But let's see how probably it should be if it was brought close to the equator line. So that is Russia, highlighted in a very light green. Okay, so before I move it, let's see its total land area. It's about 17,098,242 square kilometers. And if we drag now Russia close to the equator line, of course with a bit of distortion of the shape, but look at how small it has become. Okay. On the map here, it looks way too large than the African region, but look at how small it is. On the map, it seems as if it occupies a big space on the map, when in actual sense, not as quite. So this is how the Mercator projection is able to downsize and enlarge regions on the African map. And the sad thing is that the maps that we use, we have just picked these, the way they appear on the Mercator projection, and began using them and teaching them in schools and so on.
So the Mercator map is not the only map that is being used recently. And I think the rise to using other maps came as a result of people observing sizes of countries being downsized, like I've mentioned about Africa and other regions. So we've got other examples of projections that are being used. We have the Go-Peters projection. So when we look at the Go-Peters projection, here Africa seems to be larger than what it was, or it seems to appear when we use the Mercator projection. Russia there has downsized. Then we have South America, Greenland. It has become very, very tiny as compared to how it is on the Mercator map. Other projection, of course, is the Equal Earth projection. Here, Africa also seems a little bit larger than what is on the Mercator map, and we have regions such as Russia, Greenland, not looking as big as they are on the Mercator projection. So now, after having some regions, after having observing that the maps that are being used are wrongly used, or in terms of size, or rather they are wrong in their sizes as projected by the Mercator map. So some regions such as Boston, which is a city in the US, started encouraging schools to use the correct sizes of the world map. So probably I've just got one clip that can be of interest, and that probably can raise you also to begin doing the same in using the correct things and teaching the correct things in some of the schools around you, if it is not everywhere.
Boston public schools are changing the maps in their classrooms. The district previously used the Mercator map, which makes North America and Europe seem bigger than they really are. Critics say it's biased toward former imperialist nations. Take Greenland, for example. On the map, it's about the same size as Africa, even though it's really 14 times smaller.
What the hell is that?
It's where you've been living this whole time.
The benefit of the Mercator was the way its grid system guided sailors, but that kind of navigation isn't needed anymore because we've got planes and GPS. The Boston district is switching to the Gall-Peters map. It shows the continents in their true proportions.
Now the question that I have is that, can downsizing Africa on the map be a propaganda? Well, that is the question that you have to answer yourself, but I've just got some of the comments, or rather concerns, from few writers. We have one from Guto, who says Western propaganda made use of a number of intellectual moves aimed at instilling a sense of inferiority on the African people. The first milestone in implementing a psychology of oppression in African people can be traced on the geographical map of the globe. The downsizing of the African map served to belittle the significance of the African map and its inhabitants. The manipulation of the size of Africa on the Mercator has deep psychological implications. On the international fora, African dignitaries do not have a major say based on territorial representation, though the Western-based Mercator map, the political, social, and economic threat Africa had historically been manipulated. So that is Gutu. Then I have Somaya, who is saying placing Europe at the center of the world map continues to feed into today's dominant narrative that the Western world matters the most. Whether we choose to ascribe to this view is only significant if we critically engage in dismantling our assumptions about what we've been taught about the world, starting with how it looks. The person further goes on and says the fact that the Mercator projection is used all over the world as the world map is problematic. A quick look online at maps on sale shows that it still dominates our perception of the world. If you're shopping online for maps and travel themed gifts, you might see the Mercator projection referred to as a classic world map or as just the world map. Even Google Map uses a version of the Mercator projection. So that was Somalia. So in conclusion, as a society, we have a lot of unlearning to do. So when next you open a world map or decide to buy one, be sure to check first what type of world view you allow yourself to ascribe to. I hope you had some interesting things that you've learned in this episode, and yeah, just like I did. Thank you.